Hi, everybody. Thank y'all for jumping in. Sorry, we're just a few minutes late getting all the technology sorted out. We are so glad that you have jumped on, and we are hoping that we can answer any questions that you may have and get, especially juniors, but even sophomores, freshmen, all those summer plans straight so that you are in the best possible position for college admissions when they are starting. And the virtual, it's really important to stand out in those colleges. And having some teenagers myself, I know how busy students are now between practices and club meetings and community service. The summer really gives an opportunity for those kids to get some experiences in that makes their resume stand out. So we're going to start with introducing ourselves. My name is Anna, and I am a counselor here at Moon Prep. I have worked as a high school counselor for over 10 years. And then I kind of transitioned over to an SEC university and worked as an academic mentor there. And now I am strictly working as a counselor at Moon Prep. So I have done hundreds of applications and essays with students, anywhere from technical school to Ivy Leagues. And I really just like working with the students one-on-one. And then I'm going to let Kevin take over and introduce himself, and we'll get going.
Absolutely. Thanks for getting us started there, Anna. My name's Kevin. I am a former admissions counselor at UC Berkeley. I've been working as a college admissions consultant for 7 years now. So I'm really passionate about helping students and parents, like I'm sure we have on this stream, in sort of achieving educational and career goals. I've been really enjoying my time here at Moon Prep. We've got a really strong set of counselors who have backgrounds as BSMD students themselves, as counselors, as former writers, as admissions professionals, and as just general educators. So, nice thing about being here at Moon Prep is that we meet with each other frequently. We brainstorm how to work together with students frequently. So when you're working with one of us, you are working with all of us. So. When I have a student, who is applying to, maybe an SEC school, Anna is someone I reach out to, Big Ten school, Michaela's a former admissions counselor there who I reach out to, right? Someone folks have a question with the UCs, they reach out to me. So, we have a really strong team here at Moon Prep. Obviously, while we definitely work with all sorts of students, we have sort of developed a bit of a specialization working with a lot of students who do these direct medical programs or apply directly to medical school. And so, part of today's webinar, right, will be helping students figure out, how to best spend their summer, especially in the context of research. So, if you want to get in touch with us, we'll provide contact info again at the end, but, you can. There's a website. I'm sure you found it because you found yourself here at this webinar. Michaela at Moon Prep is a potential point of contact, right? If you're wanting to learn more about us and need like a first step through the door. But with that said, let's move on maybe to the topic of today's webinar, right? I guess maybe I'll start here, Anna, and then I'll hand it off to you, just kind of to introduce things.
Go for it.
Yeah. So, for folks who, if you're applying to the Ivies, if you're applying to a BSMD program in the future, the summers are a very important time, right? Because you need to sort of build your resume in some way, shape, or form. And obviously with COVID, there may be limited opportunities to do stuff in person. So you want to be able to set up something research-wise with either do something independently, potentially through an internship, a passion project, an independent initiative. As I said, we will focus most of our time on research here, but wanted to contextualize sort of the importance of that research in your overall resume. Is there anything else you wanted to add there, Anna?
Yep. Thank you. Sound good?
Cool. So yeah, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. So it's important to kind of narrow down that field of interest. And this is kind of going for any major. I know we work with a lot of BSMD students, but not all of our students are BSMD. Some are traditional undergrad. You kind of want a theme in your resume, and the admissions counselors really want to see that you're committed to the major, especially if you are doing an early admittance program. So the access to virtual programs now is just opening up opportunities. And honestly, students, parents, sometimes they don't even know of the programs and opportunities that are available to apply to. So that's kind of where we come in. We've compiled lists of, summer opportunities of different programs that can really jumpstart these. But since they've all gone virtual, really you're opening up to where nationwide you can look at programs from anywhere. So the building the theme in your resume, they want to make sure it's making sense. They don't want someone who there is holding a spot for medical school, but then they're going to change their major their freshman year. So they want to see that commitment if it is medical. If it is computer science, it's something else, but we're going to kind of focus on medical here. They want to see that you have a commitment, you have experiences in that area. So that's what your resume really needs to show. So take a look at your resume, kind of see where the gaps are. And then this is the time that you need to be filling in those gaps to show that you have a well-rounded experience and you are still committed.
No, for sure. And that, I think there's a lot of truth to what you've just said there, Anna. And, I mean, as a note, right, usually, as high schoolers are sort of defining and narrowing things down, right, even if you don't get it exactly right, you might get something related. So as an example, I'm working with a student right now. He pursued a lot of, research related to medicine, sort of as a high schooler, but now he wants to be a dentist. Now, obviously, his research was not dental specific. It was hard for them to know he wanted to do that as a 15-year-old, right? But those activities are still valid and useful. The research he did in biology, the medical shadowing that he did, those will all still be on theme for his overall resume, right? So, obviously you want theme, and even if your activities are, a touch different, as you're finding what you want to major in and build that theme, that's totally okay. So, I guess maybe as a starting point, maybe I'll sort of just start here, right? And you can kind of build on things, Anna. So, the most common way folks will oftentimes find research opportunities are through summer programs. So, they come in many shapes and forms. Now, so regarding the notes at the top, as far as, avoiding a Explore Pathways program, I guess you'll want to clarify what that means, right? So if you're a student, say, who is interested in a BSMD, a direct medical program, right? Doing a program that maybe has an informational interview or two, or it's just general information about medicine, if you're a rising senior doing that, right, that's not doing a whole lot to build your resume. So, and especially if you have to pay a lot of money to do a program like that, right? There may not be great value for you there. For a potential like 8th grader or freshman, and you're trying to figure out if you want to do something in a given field, maybe there's a little bit of value, right? Because you're just figuring out what your interests are. But for the most part, as far as building your resume, developing the theme that Anna highlighted, it's not going to do much for you. What will do a lot for you is developing research, right? And having research. Now, here are a couple of examples. One, as you can see, is the Data Bowl. So, that is sort of a business-focused program. There are programs in every area. That's a business one. One that's more relevant maybe to some of the direct medical students is UCI School of Medicine. Now that program is currently closed. So they just closed their applications recently. But you should be able to find, there are other universities that have medical programs like this, right? And when we go to talk about strategies for how to find maybe a summer program, we'll maybe have to sort of help you in finding the right fit for you. But the point is here, in either program, you're doing guided research, and that's the most important thing. Is there anything you'd like to add, Anna?
When you look at these programs, you're going to see that the cost of them vary greatly. So don't automatically think that just because they're costing, the most expensive programs are going to be the most beneficial. That is not necessarily true, but you have to look at what the program is offering. So really, you're really going to have to research each one. And if you have, a cost limit, then look at the ones in your cost, but really make sure you're researching each one, because each one could be offering the student different possibilities, but don't just compare the programs based on cost.
100%, right? And we'll sort of, we're just introducing the idea of summer programs right now, but as we go through this, we'll sort of talk to folks and give some info to how to prioritize and what are better, what are things to look for in summer programs that'll help build your resume a bit more. As we go, before I go to the next slide, I do want to, I think Kiri in the chat asked a very good question. Are there medical schools or medical programs, right, that accept high schoolers for research? The answer is yes. It is, sometimes it can be a bit difficult to find. As you are correct in saying, most of the programs, if you just Google, will be more geared towards undergraduates. What I will say, as far as the ones geared towards high schoolers, are oftentimes, we'll restrict it to rising seniors, but those programs do exist for sure. So I'm going to move on to the next slide here. Anna, is it all right, actually, and I know we're skipping around. Actually, I'm going to maybe skip ahead and move back to this one.
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, because I guess the thing is here is that how do you find the research programs that are right for you, right? As we kind of started, we talked about like potential research interests, right? You could look at, you could sort of start, as using these steps, right? Document potential research areas interested in you. Then, you can hop on Google. You can look to different departments close by, and sort of different universities that are close to you. If you're in Southern California, maybe that UC Irvine program makes sense. But if you're in on the East Coast in New England, maybe that's not a good fit, because even if you can do something remote, right, there is a time difference there. So I would start local with your regional universities, because A, there may be a summer program there that fits your interests based on department, based on local universities, and B, something that we do encourage students to do if they can't find a summer program is to reach out independently, because maybe you can be or your child can be maybe a research assistant in a lab, right? So, starting local is usually a good starting point, and then based on your interests. Is there anything that you think we should add there?
So I had a student last year who actually did like doctor-patient relationships and how it was affected by COVID. He did the research through it. He did this independently because he was kind of isolated and quarantined, and did everything virtually, surveys with doctors and different demographics of patients. And he actually published all of his research. So this is very doable. Just finding kind of your interest and going with it. It's really just starting with your interest and then just building on it.
Definitely solid advice. So, that's kind of maybe a starting point, right, for sort of summer research programs. Something that I did want to mention too, right, is, basically, what is the benefit here? What are you trying to accomplish, right? So, an independent research project. So this is an option in a summer program, or just reaching out independently. Give you an example. I have a student who he has a mom who is a nurse, and so she helped them reach out to a local hospital, and he worked in a lab, right? And he got to work on an independent research project in his area of interest. Has since been published. We'll talk about some avenues to get published a little bit later on, but that was an independent project that he was able to sort of get published. So there are avenues to get this done. There are journals that are geared towards high school students. So if you do some form of independent research, that is an option. But I guess maybe, before I kind of we move to like summer program essays, is there anything you want to add to Anna?
No, I was just answering the UCI program, the research program is closed. There are some other healthcare programs that are still open. But honestly, if you're looking for summer programs, that is a very, very early one, but the applications are happening now. So really the list, we're working on applications with juniors now. So those do need to be started. The deadlines do need to be looked at.
Right.
100%.
And the deadlines are starting to pass. There are more programs that have deadlines in March and April. And besides universities, right, public health agencies are a good place to look as well. The CDC has a program, the NIH has a program, but sort of getting on top of this soon. And, if you have a counselor at your local school, or if, you want some help, from a professional like Anna or myself, that is kind of a good way to maybe kickstart this. Now, obviously, you can't just get into these programs willy-nilly. They are prestigious. They are challenging to get into. They oftentimes require an application process. Now, what will be required as part of that process will vary program to program, but they will almost always require an essay. So maybe Anna, if you could walk us through some tips and pointers as to how to maybe have a good essay for your summer program.
I have actually worked on essays the majority of my day today for summer programs, so I should be good at this. The outline is kind of key. It really helps the kids. Sometimes, like if you get towards the end of the seniors and they've written, 40 essays, they can, they've kind of got it down. But these juniors are kind of at the beginning of that college essay prep. So the essays really help them stay organized and keep their thoughts organized and keeps them from getting off topic. So the outline is very important from what I have found out. The other thing that I see like juniors kind of struggling with, they just want to rephrase the question or start by the typical, my name is Anna, and I want to attend your program because that is not going to stand out to the admissions committee. So we want to be a little more clever, a little more engaging with the essays. And when we say, don't forget to mention how the program will fit your career goals, we mean be specific with the program. So do your research. Like what is specific about this program that is going to help you reach your goals? So you want to state specific facts, statistics, things like that about this program and why that would help you. And then proofread. Watch for the double spaces, the just the typos, the punctuation, things like that can be missed when you're looking so closely for the content and you kind of miss some of those grammatical errors.
100%. To kind of just tack on one point, like really quick, right? So, maybe to give some examples so that folks can maybe sort of have an information for some of the points, right? When we say specific to your career goals, obviously if you're applying to a medical summer research program, it's understood that you have a general interest in medicine. Say I'm kind of interested in the medical field isn't really specific enough, right? What's more compelling is to say, I'm interested in becoming an oncologist in the future, and something that I want to research based on my science fair project my junior year was the influence of this compound or this food on finding these specific cancer cells, right? That is much more compelling. It sort of, if someone in the program or at the university specializes in that, maybe they'll get passed along your application and really want to work with you, right? There's just a lot more power in that. And obviously, when it comes to creating these engaging intros, there's a lot of techniques you can use. I know Anna has a lot. Like I've seen some of the essays her students have written, and she has a lot of clever techniques on that. But there's a lot of techniques to use. It's one, as long as you are not completely rude or unprofessional, right? It's okay to kind of take a chance on being a little different to catch the reader's attention. So don't be too afraid. It needs to be on topic. it can't be completely professional or profane, but it can be creative for sure. Okay. So something that there's a lot of summer programs out there. One that I think would like to highlight is Rising Researchers. It's a program at UMass Amherst. Now, the reason we want to highlight this specifically is here at Moon Prep, as we've been working for years with students who are applying to these direct medical programs, one of the biggest challenges we run into is how to get students published research. Right? Sometimes they'll do be a finalist in the state science fair. Maybe they'll even do like a research assistantship at a university, right? But you have this research and there's nowhere to put it out into the world, right? Or at least nowhere that will be considered reputable or prestigious, right? And while there are high school journals out there, sometimes our experience has been there's been a long turnaround time to get responses from them, just because hey, if you got one person editing a journal or a couple people editing a journal, there's a lot of submissions, right? Maybe 3 or 6 months to get a turnaround time on whether they'll even consider you, right? Which is, if you're applying right now, it can be a bit difficult, or if you're applying next year, it can be difficult, right? So I mean, we sort of have a partnership with UMass Amherst. It'll be basically a biology class. It's a sort of virtual research class, right? And so students, you learn some relevant lab skills, you learn some research skills, you learn how to write a paper, and also as a direct thing is, obviously you have to do well in the class, but the finished product is actually a published research paper in a UMass academic journal, which for high school students is a big benefit, right? That is, while any research is good research, having something published in an academic journal is better than simply just having something you did in a bio class offhand, right? We are a big proponent of this program. Obviously, we suggest you look at it, but if you can see if it's right for you. Is there, Anna, do you have anything to add on Rising Researchers?
The reason like we were talking about the different cost of some of these, the reason this is one that I do recommend to our students. This is where you're kind of looking at where the cost versus what the students are getting. So they are getting a publication, but they are also getting some college credit. So the benefits for the student, in my opinion, is very worth the price of this program. And the students who really work through and they walk you through of how to write. So the students that are walking through, taking the feedback and working through the program do end up getting published if they are working with the faculty and the professors. This is just, I feel like is very beneficial for students. So that is why it is one that I do highly recommend for students. And I believe the deadline is at the end of April or is it the 1st of May?
I unfortunately I don't remember off the top of my head.
Wait, I can look it up really fast.
Yeah, I believe though, because we did have a question in the chat that does it accept rising freshmen? I believe it does. I believe that's like the youngest age, and you have to be a high schooler. But I think for rising freshmen,
rising 9th through 12th grade.
Yeah. Okay. So you should be good to go on that. And I will say that as well, right? And so part of you making a decision.
May 2nd is the deadline.
Okay, May 2nd. So I'm just gonna put that in the chat, just so it's sitting in the chat, right? As a deadline. So the other reason to put this out here as well is that while if you're a rising senior, you have a decent number of options regarding summer programs. There are a lot of programs. I'd say majority of programs, right? They don't tend to accept underclassmen. It's a lot more difficult to land something. Whether it's at a major public health agency or one of the prestigious universities, right? If you're not a rising senior. So as far as whether this is a good fit for you, that could be a consideration as well. If you're an underclassman.
I even have there's some that are by age. So I even have some like young seniors that have a summer birthday.
Right.
I'm too young for this program. So you got to, you have to look again at each specific one.
Right. And
Right. It's a great opportunity for younger, so you can do the other opportunities as an upperclassman.
Right. For sure. And I just kind of put a bow on it before we sort of talk about things you can do with your research, right? Is this is not this. There are other good programs out there for sure. We talked about UCI. I mentioned UCSD. There are public health agencies with good programs, but what you're just going to have to weigh too as well. What makes sense for you, and that's one we do like because we identified some sort of difficulties for students to get published research, and that program solves, I think, a lot of them. So definitely give it a look. I guess we did talk about summer programs. We did talk about independent research. The nice thing about doing independent research too, right? Even if it's you're doing something independently, is that if you can't get it published in an academic journal, there's still a lot of stuff you can do, right? There's a lot. The number one thing is get your work out into the world. If you have research that you've completed or a project that you've completed of some sort, right? Even self-publishing it somewhere, post if it's more say computational biology or technically focused, putting the code on GitHub, putting something on YouTube, right? Anytime you can put something out into the world, it benefits your resume more than saying, I just happen to do a project, right, on your as a line on your resume or your application. So there's obviously we encourage students to try to get published, but we understand that's not always an option, and there's still a lot of ways for you to put that work that you've done, that research that you've done out in the world, especially if you've gone a more independent route, whether it's a project you've done on your own or you just happen to be a lab assistant somewhere and there's not, it wasn't through a program, so there's not a guided way for you to put your research out there, right? Do you have any other sort of things that maybe we think we should add here, Anna?
No, we've had students do so many of these things, and honestly, sometimes the students come to us and are like, can I do this? Just get creative with it. Things like that. It looks good that you're just taking like initiative and a leadership. And in response to your question, so I would say yes and no. If it is an upperclassman who is very already identified in the area or field, and this is definitely not it, you may want to look for another program that fits better. If it is a younger student, I think Rising Researchers walks through the scientific method and how to write properly so well that it is helpful for any field, if that helps answer your question to that.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
No, that's great. That's great advice. So maybe to give and this is to Kiyuri's question in the chat.
Yes.
If you're a senior who's explicitly interested in like computer science or data science and don't really care about medical applications, right? Then this may not be a good fit. If you're a freshman and you're looking at what programs are good for me and you're kind of interested in tech, you're not sure if you're into biology. Maybe there's a better program out there. I'd look for sure. As we said, look at the department, start local, look at local departments, look at the summer programs at your local universities, right? Or your regional universities, I should say. And then you can kind of expand out from there. You can look national, right? Because there are some remote opportunities, but if you need somewhere to start, starting local is kind of the easiest way to go. But yeah, I think Anna's right on that. But even if you're not 100% on that, right? Like getting college credit and published research as a freshman, if you're in any STEM field, that's going to have some value. So I wouldn't necessarily completely dismiss the program. But yeah, there may be better fits for sure.
But if you are not confident in like scientific the scientific process or writing scientifically, I would still recommend the program.
Yeah, it builds skills for sure. It builds skills.
Okay, so I have high school students. They're all over the place, and they have the attention span of like a fly. I know, but their social calendars are very full. So really having a schedule and keeping to it it is good to write it down, because their favorite thing is, I never said that, or you never told me that. Like, I hear that every day. So if you just kind of have a very basic outline, like freshman year, these are kind of the things we want to get done. Sophomore year, very general, not specific, and really stick to it. When you're going to look at, college visits, when you're going to do testing, when you're going to do, summer programs, things like that. If you're going to start a passion project, when is that going to fit in your schedule? Because their schedules get busy. So if you have that, written out plan, it's not in stone, it can change, but it gives you an idea, and it kind of helps keep the kids on track.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we thought it'd be useful to bring this up here, just because, right now, as Anna, I think, astutely brought up earlier, the deadlines for these summer programs are coming up right now. So whether you're a freshman, sophomore, or junior, there's never a wrong time to kind of start setting up a schedule for yourself, especially if you're you're a rising senior and you need to get sort of public, you need to do some sort of research to kind of build your BSMD profile, because that is something that they will look for as part of that admissions process. I kind of bring this back to rising researchers, put a bow on it. We do have an ongoing offer there, if you do apply by April 12th, there is a discount. You can find more info about rising researchers through that website. And if you need information, right, you want to get in touch with somebody in the program, that information is there. Fortunately, it's easy to remember. Website, www.risingresearchers.com, and the help email is hello@risingresearchers.com. Yeah. So, we want, this webinar is focused on research, and we did want to put that here. We know students are interested in that, because that is one major component that BSMD admissions is focused on. We did want to put a little bit of time at the end, sort of to maybe alternative plans, right? Just because I think part of the challenge folks are facing is, maybe you're a rising senior and you don't know what to do with your BSMD, or maybe you're not quite sure how to make the most of the summer, given that the ebbs and flows of COVID, makes it unclear whether programs are still going, whether the program will be remote or in person, right? What the eligibility will be, depending on sort of how things change. So we wanted to cover just a few other things briefly. So beyond research, if you're a BSMD student, and if you're just generally applying to schools, right, sort of professional focus is another good focus, because if you're if you're a BSMD student, you do need to have some shadowing hours. So, maybe you're a student on here, you're curious about research, but maybe you're strong there and you need to fill out something else. I guess, do you want to add anything to this slide, Anna?
This is something that you can't forget about in your resume. The role of a physician is not, there's so much more in the day-to-day. Even if you have a family member that is a physician, it's just totally different when you are experiencing a day with them. And when you are in there, make sure that they feel like not only you're benefiting, but it's a benefit for them. So, offer to help however you can. They're going to be menial jobs. It's okay. You're still getting a sense of, what their day looks like, what exactly their duties include. And basically that's showing the admissions counselors, like, they have seen what a doctor's life is and what it entails to be a doctor, and they still want to do it. So the job shadowing is important.
100%. And I just kind of contextualize maybe it's on this slide, right? So, the most common path for some of these shadowing opportunities is, you reach out to a local hospital, maybe your physician, or whatever personal networks you have, right, to see if you can shadow. With COVID, that sometimes screws this up, because maybe the local hospital is no longer accepting volunteers, depending on what state you're in. Web Shadowers is a virtual shadowing sort of opportunity. Obviously, if you can, right, if it's safe in your state, we encourage, I think, exactly for the reasons Anna pointed out, and admissions offices, school medicines do like it. But if they are understanding the fact that maybe you're in a state that things aren't open. So Web Shadowers is, we have had students do the virtual shadowing programs. They're still getting interviews and acceptances to places. So, it's a good opportunity. Forge is another one. And, reaching out local, is always good advice, right? It's, if you don't have, right, if there's not someone who can tell you about 100 different programs like me or Anna, right, then, usually whether it's research or shadowing, starting local, just thinking systematically about it, right? This is just kind of advice to help you too if you're starting from scratch. Reaching out to local companies, reaching out to local universities is a good way to start. Okay. So, and this is something that, this is, hey, because this is kind of late and maybe, you procrastinate a bit and you only apply to 1 or 2 research programs in March or April. You don't get into them, trying to figure out what to do, right? You could reach out to local companies and shadow. That's kind of option A, right? An option B is just picking up a passion project of some sort. I think Anna sort of hit it on the nail on the head perfectly. When you want to build a theme in your resume, passion project is a perfect way to do that. What this can look like during the COVID times. It can be in many ways, shapes, or forms. We've talked about the research component of it, right? You can self-publish. If you've done a research project before, that has been published or has been, completed somewhere, maybe you can build on it. But there's a lot of alternative options as well. Maybe I'll let Anna start. Do you have some sort of ideas or anything you want to add about passion projects or examples? Maybe that.
Oh gosh, we have had so many examples, and I'll be honest. Kids are more creative with this than we are. We have kids that have done YouTube channels. We have kids that have not only done children's books about like ABCs of washing hands. It is so easy to publish like children's books with different programs and things now. And then they'll go and do a story time at the local library or donate some of the books to the elementary school. We have students that are like gathering, supplies and donating them to homeless shelters, domestic abuse shelters, diapers, formula, hand wipes, hand sanitizer. This is wide open of things that you can do. So really, it's something that they are kind of passionate about. I had one student, which his was pretty, he's trying to get backing from like the Gates Foundation for like a mosquito net initiative. But kids, they need to find something that they're passionate about. And there is some kind of need. So find a need and just go with it and find something that interests you. And then it makes it not so hard and tedious for them. So, okay, yes, the shadowing a doctor from any specialty, I'm responding to this question.
Yeah.
And you answered that. Yes, we've had people shadow dentist, pharmacist, as long it is medical based. That's great. But no, the passion projects, it's pretty much wide open.
Yeah, 100%. And to build on this, or to give concrete examples, for example, like, I've had students who, they're intending to become physicians, maybe general practitioners or pediatricians, right? And they've shadowed like physical therapists or like a psychiatric practice, and they're getting interviews, they're getting acceptances right, into these programs, BSMD programs. So, it doesn't have to be the exact specialization you're going in, right? If you're going to be an oncologist, if you can't find an oncologist to shadow, especially right now, just because obviously that's an at-risk population with COVID, it's kind of hard to shadow an oncology wing right now, right? It's understandable, especially right now. But making an attempt to do some sort of shadowing is super important. I think to build though on Anna's point, right? We are working obviously while kids are super creative. I think sometimes they need help with that first step, right? Where do you go? And that's something we do work with students a lot because some students they need help with the first step, right? And
if you help them find their interest and things they like to do, they'll put it together and go with it.
100%, right?
You just kind of get them to connect the pieces, and then they'll run with it. 100%.
And usually what that will involve is just sitting down with the student, right? Figuring out the interest, but also what the connections are, right? To give an example, I have a student who, we have no idea what we're going to do for a passion project for him. And we sat down, well, what do you do? And it's like, oh, well, I volunteered a few times at this nursing home. Well, hey, there's sort of keeping, as far as making sure the seniors have are socially engaged and have people who care about them, especially during an isolating time during COVID. That was sort of a passion project, an area of interest that we're building with him. And working with students too. Like something that I put on here was sort of there's online projects and communities you can find. One I listed on here was Kaggle. They do a lot of like technical competitions, and research organizations and companies will have competitions on here. It's like, hey, we are Geico and we want to, we have a data set and we want to improve our insurance product, right? And anybody can do it. And I'm actually working. I may actually, I set someone up on one of those. And I actually may work on a project with them on one of it, just because I love that sort of thing too. But yeah, I mean, kids really, when you get their passion going, you just help them figure out what their resources are. It's a good start. And as a parent, you can maybe help with that. Maybe your school counselor, they can do that. Obviously, if you're, as sometimes is the case, school counselor doesn't maybe have the time. You can also reach out to someone at a place like MoonPrep, and we work with students like that all the time, for sure. Yeah. Okay. So obviously, you're here. Maybe you've seen our website already, but just in case you want some more resources, right? Anything related to the college admissions process, how to build out your activities, right? We have ebooks on our website. You can register for future webinars. Obviously, I think most folks are watching our YouTube channel, this on our YouTube channel right now. So we have previous webinars on our YouTube channel, right, with different topics. And so, yeah, and obviously, is there anything I'm forgetting here?
No, I mean, I think there's so many resources available on MoonPrep. And when you sign up for, those emails, which I'm sure y'all are, because you're getting the, contents about the webinars, they're sending out so much information, that can help you. So just take advantage of it.
100%. If we're trying to do these webinars more frequently. We're trying to have different topics on them. You can let us know, if it was, whether it worked for you, whether it was informative. We are trying, to help students here. And obviously, we have a service that we offer, and we can provide more specialized, guided feedback there. But we did want to put out a lot of resources out into the world that can help students, of course. And yeah, I mean, do you want to take that question, Anna, or do you want me to take that question?
The self-publishing a book, honestly, it's pretty easy on Amazon, Kindle, and then ebooks is also pretty easy as well. But we've had several people do the self-publishing on Amazon, and it's not even really for the purpose of selling a lot of books on Amazon. They're mainly doing it like to distribute, if they're doing it as like a passion project. But yeah, if we can either help with that, a quick Google search, like publishing on Amazon, publishing a Kindle book. There's tons of information online about it.
100%.
It's really not hard.
100%. And just to kind of emphasize on this, right? Whether it's research, right, which is the first sort of main topic here, but whether it's your research, whether it's your passion project, that's different
than publishing like an article in a journal.
Yeah, obviously publishing a journal is the best, but just putting something out into the world that makes it real, right? So it's one of those things that it's not just for, obviously that helps in your resume, college applications and all that, BSMD programs. But let's say, especially if you're an underclassman, right? If you're a senior, right? If you're applying to future internships, future research projects, right? Having, projects that you've done related to your field, that they can click on and access and see, right? It makes you a lot more appealing applicant, right? So, I know folks, maybe you're hopping on to this research thing last minute, and maybe you don't have the ability to work with a counselor like this, like, me or Anna to get things started right away. But if that's the case, try to do what you can, self-publish it, and then next year go for those prestigious programs, right? That is the benefit of that for sure. So I do want to put on kind of folks' radar, stuff that we have coming up in the next few weeks. I think the titles speak for themselves. We have some insider tips for applying to medical school. We have medical student. We have a couple medical students on hand right now, BSMD and BSDO, who've done the BSMD and BSDO routes. So, we have admissions counselors. So, those insider tips, I think you'll like that webinar for sure. Obviously scholarships, I think, especially for seniors, right? Maybe that'll be useful for you guys, or juniors too. I actually have juniors asking about scholarships. And then, for folks who are newer to the process, we got one on March 24th, and you're just trying to figure out, what am I going to need to do to apply? So that's what we got upcoming.
Honestly, the parents that have done it, it's so different from when you've applied. If you haven't had a student, do it recently in the last couple of years, and it can be overwhelming. So we're going to try to break it down and make it a little more streamlined for you.
100%. We try to put resources out there, but if you want to get in touch with us directly, you can use our website, as you probably access to it, but emailing Lindsay at MoonPrep or Michaela at moonprep.com. If you need touch point because you want to get in touch with the counselor, right? Because you need to hit the ground running, applying for a summer program, or your BSMD next year, or whatever the case is, right? You can get in touch with us for sure. I guess Gurpreet, to kind of get, maybe we can spend a few more minutes on questions, given we do have a more time schedule. But so Gurpreet, where can we publish research? That's a good question. The first spot, I would try to get published in someplace reputable, right? There are journals specifically for high school students. You can Google some of them. What I will say for those journals, it will take maybe, I would plan in advance for those, because as I said, it takes time. There's a turnaround on that. Obviously the Rising Researchers Program, if you're wanting for sure what method, right, to get published, that's a good one. And other than that, self-publishing, as we kind of talked about, right, just simply putting something out on on Amazon, right? Or if it's more of sort of technically focused, right, if it's a computational biology stuff where you went through some genomic data, putting something on GitHub, right, which is a repository for code. Just any way, shape, or form you can put it out into the world. It's going to look so much better from an admission standpoint, or for applying for programs, summer programs, or internships in the future.
And when you're looking for academic journals, you just have to really look at each one, because some of them are very specific on topics, some are very specific on, what kind of research. So it's really going to take some searching to do. And does it matter where we get undergrad education from? So if you're applying for a traditional, were you good with that, Kevin? Did I cut you off on that one?
No.
Okay. Okay. So if you're doing a traditional undergrad, yes, it can and no. We're not saying that you have to go to an Ivy League school to get medical school. That's absolutely not the case, because there's a lot of medical schools, but there are definitely schools that partner with different medical schools, and you're going to get, if you've attended certain undergrads, you're going to have a preferential admissions to those medical schools. Right. But at the same time, you don't want to go to a very prestigious school and not have the GPA to be competitive for those medical schools, if that makes sense. But really, it's about the GPA and the classes that you're taking.
100%. And Anna, I'm going to be more blunt, right? Because I think Anna was trying to be sort of polite and answering that. And I'm just going to be more blunt, right? SS, this is not to insult anybody, but just data doesn't lie, right? So you can, not all schools, a lot of schools don't publish this, but certain schools will publish, if you go to their career development office page, right? Maybe for your university, they'll have that info available to you, whether either on the website or if you ask them directly. But schools will sometimes publish the percent of students, let's say above a certain GPA, who get into medical school. And there is a difference. Some schools, it may only be 30 or 40%. Some schools may be 70, up to 70, 80% for the most, some of the top IVs, right? So, there is a difference. Now, as far as whether you have a chance at getting into a med school, right? Anna's, I think Anna covered it where, as long as you have as long as you have a solid GPA, you've taken the prereqs, right? You've taken the MCAT and gotten a reasonably good score, you're in the ballpark. But it does impact things. There's just no, it's not everything, but it does impact things.
Okay, so the next one, what is the difference between BSMD and BSDO? Honestly, there is not a lot. A BSMD is like a traditional medical school. A BSDO is an I'm going to say this wrong. I always do. Osteopathic medical school. So basically, we're kind of moving towards, the DO programs, like where they're trying to find like kind of the root of the problem instead of just addressing the problem. That's kind of how they explain the difference of their self.
Right.
Honestly, you really don't know a lot of the doctors. Like if you go to your general practitioner or your pediatrician, you really don't know if they're a BSMD or a BSDO. Now, like surgeons and things, that may be a little different. But honestly, it's not limiting on your residency or what type of doctor you can be.
Right.
They just address medicine. They address the approach differently.
100%. And so basically, I think Anna, you've covered it. That if you're trying to become a doctor, right? If you're trying to be a GP or something, right? There's fundamentally not a difference, right? I will say, from an admission standpoint, DOs are slightly easier to get into, just because not as many people are aware that this is an option to become like a doctor, right?
I don't think that's going to last forever.
I don't think so. But there's still a little bit of a difference right now.
Yes, right now there is.
That gap will close. Maybe to provide what I would suggest, if you're kind of worried about the material learning, you're going to get a good medical education either way. But I would look up to the difference between a DO and an MD to maybe provide a blunt example. It's not perfect, but to kind of give you a sense, right? A group read. If let's say you have a patient with, like high cholesterol, right? Maybe, the sort of osteopathic medicine will more likely to encourage you to first maybe talk about them about like their nutrition and set up like a nutrition plan for them or something like that, right? And then, if that fails and you've gone through a few steps and that fails, maybe prescribe, anti-cholesterol medicine that lowers cholesterol, where that may come a little bit sooner for an MD, that step. It's a very blunt example, but, as far as are both reputable? Are they both science-based, right? Will you be fine either way? You'll be fine either way. It's also just, I think the other thing is too, is that if you're looking at the programs, do you like the schools as well, right? Because there's BSMDs at a bunch of different types of schools and BSDOs at a bunch of different types of schools.
And Kevin, I'm sure you're the same. Like I have several students that are applying to both.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, students apply to both. And like in my own life, I've had general practitioners who are DOs and MDs, and they've been good either way.
Okay, and then to address the early high school graduates. So I'm thinking you mean early college, high school, where you're graduating high school with the associate's degree from the community college. I'm thinking that's what that means. Is that how you're taking that question?
I guess, sorry, Scientica, I'm not 100% on your question. Maybe
early high school. Okay, so if that is the case, I actually have a student right now who is in early college, high school. So she will graduate with an associate's degree, and she is graduating. She will be applying for BSMD programs. So yes, you are absolutely prepared for that. You may end up with a few more hours just because I know I used to work at an early college, high school. And just to get those hours to fit with the high school graduation, sometimes they don't always fit with the college pre-med prerequisites. So you may end up with a few more hours, but yes, you are absolutely prepared for those programs. Oh, it fits in biology, then yeah, you will definitely be prepared for that. And you can apply to those BSMD programs. Yes.
Okay. If we don't have any more questions, we may end things soon. We'll give it kind of maybe another minute or two, see if anything strolls in. But once again, we have webinars coming up. I'm Kevin. My friend here, my colleague here is Anna. If you want to reach out to us, let us know if this webinar was helpful. If you want to work with a counselor at MoonPrep, our website's right there. You can reach out to Lindsay at MoonPrep or Michaela at MoonPrep. Yeah, I'll put them in the chat as well, just so it's there. So if you're thinking about it and you want to sort of reach out to us, you can do that. Right, it's in the chat. Yeah, and I guess thanks everybody. It looks like we'll be set. I don't see any other questions popping in. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Thanks for hopping on, and we'll see y'all soon.